Welcome to the presentation on classifications of solids. I am Ms.K.Janani, Assistant Professor, St.Joseph's College for Women, Tirupur. These are the objectives of this video. Classifications of solids, conductors, energy band diagram of conductors, semiconductor, energy band diagram of semiconductors, insulators, energy band diagram of insulator, self-assessment, activity, learning outcome and references. Classifications of solid. Do you know what are the classifications of solid? Yeah, the solids can be classified into many ways depending on their molecular, crystalline and conductivity properties. In this video, we are going to see the conductivity properties of solids. Based on the conductivity of the materials, they are classified as three types: conductors, semiconductors and insulators. Conductors. A material which acting as a conductor contains electrons and holes, and it contains electrons as a majority charge carriers. The materials which allow current to flow through them are called conductors. Conductors have free electrons on their surface in order to conduct current from one element of the circuit to another. The first diagram shows that due to the conduction property of the conductors, the bulb glows. The second diagram portrays that it has electrons and holes in it. Some of the examples of conductors are copper, aluminium and gold. The below diagram shows that the energy band diagram of the conductors. It contains valence band and conduction band. The valence band specifies the energy level of the electrons present in the valence shell of an atomic structure. Then what is meant by conduction band? It holds those electrons that are responsible for conduction. The energy level diagram of the conductors shows that the overlapped valence band and conduction band, and thus having large electrical conductivity. So there is no band gap in the conductors. Semiconductors. A semiconductor is a material that has intermediate conductivity between a conductor and an insulator. It can also be defined as a semiconductor is an insulator at very low temperature but which has a sizable electrical conductivity at room temperature. Now we shall discuss what are the properties of semiconductors. The energy gap is very small. Very little energy is needed to transfer the electrons from valence band into conduction band. By raising the temperature, more and more electrons get transferred from valence band to conduction band. The process results in increase in conductivity with increase in temperature. Some of the examples of semiconductors are silicon, germanium and gallium. The first diagram is the energy band diagram of a semiconductors. It contains valence band and conduction band as in the conductors, but it is having a band gap between valence band and conduction band. This band gap is known as forbidden energy gap. What is meant by band gap? A band gap is the distance between valence band of the electrons and the conduction band. It represents the minimum energy that is required to excite an electron up to a state in the conduction band where it can participate in conduction. The energy level diagram of the semiconductor shows very small band gap between valence band and conduction band. These semiconductors are used in IC chips and LEDs. The third category of the classifications of solids are insulators. The insulators are the materials opposite of conductors. The atoms are not exactly free and stable. It prevents or blocks the flow of electricity. It acts like a protective cables in the wires. This diagram shows the energy band diagram of an insulator. It also consists valence band and conduction band, but there is a very large band gap between valence band and conduction band. So more amount of energy is needed to require a This is the comparative analysis of the classifications of solids, that is insulator, semiconductor and conductor. In insulator, more amount of external energy is supplied to undergo conduction. The forbidden energy gap is of the order of 9 electron volt. In semiconductor, less amount of energy is supplied to undergo conduction. The forbidden energy gap is of the order of 1 electron volt. For conductor, there is an overlapped valence band and conduction band. So, there exists large conductivity. These are some of the self-assessment questions. The forbidden energy gap for silicon is 1.1 electron volt. What is meant by band gap? A band gap is the distance between valence band of the electrons and the conduction band. It represents the minimum energy that is required to excite an electron up to a state in the conduction band where it can participate in conduction. Some of the activities for the classifications of solid. Collect some of the solids and liquids which are conductors and insulator. Learning outcome. To know the classifications of solid and are to be used in the project purposes. These are some of the references for the classifications of solids. Modern Physics by R. Murugesan, Solid State Physics by Gupta Kumar. Thanks for watching.